It's called the game of the century. It was played between Bobby Fischer and Donald Byrne. Donald Byrne is actually playing with the white pieces. I said that backwards, but Bobby Fischer is playing as black, and it was played in 1956 in New York. Um, this is called the game of the century because nobody really knew who Bobby Fischer was until after this game was played. The rumor is that everyone always knew who Bobby Fischer was, and that's not the case. It was only until after this game that Bobby Fischer really got a reputation. Um, and Donald Byrne was actually the favorite in this game. Um, yeah, like I said, Donald Byrne was actually the favorite in this game. Um, because, yeah, Bobby Fischer was a very strong prospect, clearly. Um, but Donald Byrne was actually a multiple time senior champion, and also he almost had a Grandmaster title at the time that this game was played. So it's really, really important for Bobby. This is a very, very instructive game, in my opinion, but let's go ahead and see it. We have knight to f3, knight to f6. This is the ready opening. c4, g6, knight to c3, bishop to g7, d4, castles, bishop to f4, d5. Bobby goes for the Gruenfeld defense. And we have queen b3, d takes on c4, which is an important move because after the queen recaptures, or like I said, after the what? Okay, sorry. After the queen recaptures and Byrne pushes e4, then the bishop won't be able to recapture because the queen will be there. So we'll have to develop between e2 or d3. So we have queen takes on b4 or c4, c6, e4, knight b to d7, rook d1, knight b6 with a tempo on the queen, queen c5, bishop to g4, and Donald Byrne actually breaks one of the most fundamental rules in chess, and he moves the same piece twice in the opening. He plays bishop to g5. Now, Bobby really punishes this. He punished this move severely, but I encourage you to find the move that Bobby Fischer played. If you've seen this game before, you actually might already know the move, but for the people who are just seeing this game for the first time, I encourage you to find the move that Bobby Fischer played. Okay, now that you've done that, if you found it, I congratulate you. It is it's difficult to find, especially for the first time. Bobby plays knight to a4. Now this is some move, because if it seems like he can just simply capture the knight, but if he captures on a4, we get knight to e4, or knight takes on e4, with a double attack on the queen and the bishop. But even if, well, yeah, he leaves this e7 pawn undefended, but, well, not undefended, but only defended once. But if he does capture, if Byrne plays this perfectly, this would still be better for black. So if queen takes on d7, he would get bishop takes on f3, queen takes on d8, rook f takes on d8, bishop takes on d8, bishop takes on d1, knight c3, because there was a tempo on this undefended knight by the bishop. So we have knight c3, rook takes on d8, knight takes on d1, and this rook to e8 move is very important, because he would have to defend against Bobby's threat of coming to g3 with the knight with a discover check winning the rook. So he would have to play bishop to e2, and bishop takes on d4. So simply, Bobby Fischer would be winning a pawn here, and the position's just a lot better for black. So he doesn't take the knight. Instead, he plays queen to a3. So we have knight takes on c3, and of course you can't capture with the queen because the knight would simply take on e4 with a double attack on the queen and the bishop again. So we have b takes on c3, knight takes on e4, bishop takes on e7, because their knight was attacking that undefended bishop. So he does take on e7. Now it seems like he's winning the exchange here, because after the queen comes to b6, then he could simply capture the rook. But let's see what happens. So he plays queen b6, and instead he plays bishop to c4. Now let's see what happens if he captures this rook here. Bishop takes on f8, then bishop takes on f8 with a tempo on the queen. So we have queen b3, rook to e8. Again, this move is very, very annoying, because again he has to defend against threats like coming to g3. So after he would exchange queens, then he would have to play bishop to e2, and knight takes on c3 with a double attack on the bishop. He's attacking the rook. It's just a lot better of a position for black. So instead he plays bishop to c4, like I said before. We have knight takes on c3, and of course you're not giving up a piece here, because if the queen captures, then rook to e8 would be winning the piece back, because the bishop is pinned to the king. So we have bishop to c5. Now this seems like a very good move for black, or for white, because he's attacking the bishop or the queen and the knight. But in this position, Bobby Fischer plays an incredible move, and I encourage you to find it. And I'll give you a few moments. Okay, now if you found it, I congratulate you. Now this move seems a little bit easier of a move to find. Most of the time, if a queen is under attack and I encourage you to find the next move, chances are he's going to be leaving the queen hanging. So Bobby plays, he plays an intermezzo, and he plays rook to e8 check, so the king has to come to f1. So we have bishop to e6. Now this is the move that you needed to find, because I mean, this is a hell of a move. I mean, it's encouraging, it's giving Byrne a lot of options. He can capture the knight, the obvious, taking the queen with the bishop, or taking this bishop here as well. So let's see what happens if he captures on e6. It actually is a forced checkmate in 6 moves. So bishop or queen b5 check, king g1, knight to e2 check. Now this is basically going to be a smothered mate. So we have king f1, knight to g3 with a double check, king g1, queen to f1 check. Now this is the Philidor's mate. He's forcing the white king to capture the queen with the rook. Rook takes on f1, and knight to e2 checkmate. So he can't capture on e6, clearly. But let's see what happens. Well, if he captures on c3, then simply capturing this bishop is perfectly fine, because it pins this bishop, because the queen would be undefended, and it also pins this pawn, because if the pawn would recapture the queen after the queen takes the bishop, then Bobby could simply capture the queen on c3. So he doesn't capture the knight either, so it looks like the only move that Byrne has is to capture the queen. So that's what he does. He plays bishop takes on b6. Now we have bishop takes on c4 with check, king g1, and knight to e2 check. Now he's forcing Byrne into a windmill. Now king f1, knight takes on d4 with check, king g1, knight to e2 check, king f1, knight to c3 check. Now he didn't just capture this pawn for no reason. There's a higher purpose to this move. So we have king g1, a takes on b6 with an intermezzo, with opening an attack on the queen. So we have queen b4, attacking the bishop. Now we have rook to a4. Now he's defending this bishop, and the knight is defending the rook, and the rook is defending the bishop. So that's what you want to do whenever you have pieces against a queen. You want everything to be defended. So that's why he captured on this pawn, or captured this pawn, because the bishop would now be defending this knight. So it's a very nice move. We have queen takes on b6, knight takes on d1, h3. Now Byrne is just doing whatever he can to develop his pieces. So we have knight takes on a2, king h2, knight takes on f2, rook e1, rook takes on e1, queen to e8 check, bishop to f8, knight takes on e1, bishop to d5. Now, after the knight comes to f3, the only chance that Byrne has is if Bobby Fischer falls asleep and allows him to come here, to attack this bishop twice, but of course Bobby doesn't do that. We have knight to e4, queen b8 going for the b7 pawn, we have b5, h4, h5, not allowing Byrne to open it up on the king side. Knight to e5, we have king g7. Now if the knight comes here, of course if the knight comes here, then simply bishop to d6 with a double check, or not with a double check, but with a fork on the king and the queen. So we have king g1, bishop to c5 with check. Now he's forcing Byrne into a windmill. We have king f1, knight to g3 check, king e1, bishop to b4 check, king d1, bishop b3 check, king c1, knight e2 check, king b1, knight to c3 check, king c1, and Bobby actually has an option of either coming here with checkmate or coming here with checkmate. He chooses the rook. Rook to c2 checkmate. And I don't think we'll ever know why he never chose to come to a3 with checkmate. That's probably what I would choose, just because I think it looks prettier, but that's in my opinion. I hope you guys enjoyed that game, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you.